Hello, everyone. I'm Cole Altom, managing editor here at Stratfor, and with me today is our Latin America analyst, Reggie Thompson, for our monthly Compass preview. We start with Petrobras, Brazil's state-owned energy company. Now, Reggie, I think it's fair to say that Petrobras was held in very high regard. It was a good example of a Latin American energy company that was doing it the right way. It avoided some of the pitfalls that had kind of befallen Pemex and PDVSA. It's not really the case anymore. It's fallen from grace a little bit because of a corruption scandal. It's implicated dozens of people, sitting politicians, Petrobras officials. The CEO herself was actually forced to resign recently. What happened?
So essentially what happened in Brazil is Petrobras was for a long time held up as an example of a company doing things right. They successfully discovered and exploited many offshore oil and natural gas resources during the past several decades. Now, what happened, though, was because of the close relationship between the Workers' Party and Petrobras, and because of some of the more corrupt officials at companies and in the public sector that were operating with Petrobras, this massive overcharging scandal in which companies inflated contracts and received kickbacks and bribed Petrobras officials to receive these kickbacks. This scandal sort of just exploded, and it really destroyed some of the confidence that foreign investors have in Petrobras. And there have been close to 50 officials in the private sector and in the public sector that have been implicated or indicted as a result of this. Now, over the next few months, what's going to happen is that Petrobras is going to continue with an internal investigation, because what it's also done is that it's delayed the release of results for Petrobras. Their third quarter 2014 financial results have been delayed while the scale of the kickbacks and the corruption is being uncovered. And so what we're going to see is Petrobras is going to try to send signals to investors and to creditors that it's trying to address this problem. So they're going to take internal anti-corruption measures. They're going to try to release these results over the next month. And this is something we're going to see play out in the public scene in Brazil for a while more.
Fair enough. And at the risk of sounding cynical, corruption happens all the time everywhere. People are bribed. People appoint other people to positions that maybe they didn't deserve. This happens everywhere. Why is this scandal, in particular, more so than others, more geopolitically relevant?
Well, this is particularly relevant because it comes at a bad time for Brazil. So the Brazilian economy has been in a slowdown for several years now, and this is largely because of declining prices for the iron ore that Brazil exports, declining prices for other commodities, such as petroleum and soybeans, obviously. And so what we're getting right now is a corruption scandal that has kind of morphed into a political crisis for Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff. And so right now her approval rating is plummeting. There are multiple protests being organized by opposition parties, and there's even calls from some sectors in the government and in the among the general public for the impeachment of Rousseff. Now, this is a highly unlikely conclusion to this scandal. What's more likely that's going to happen is that opposition politicians opposed to Rousseff are going to keep pushing for this, going to keep pushing for her impeachment without success, because there's still gatekeepers such as the lower house of Congress that are well within Rousseff's alliance. And so we're probably going to see a little bit of kind of horse trading kind of negotiations there to shore up those alliances, despite Rousseff's low approval ratings. We're probably not going to see this go to that extreme.
Okay. Well, now that we've got you in the studio, Reggie, we've got a little time left, and I want to move on to Colombia. As you know, the peace negotiations between the Colombian government and the FARC they're still going on, and they appear to be going well enough. But Colombia, like many other countries that depend a little too heavily on oil exports, they've seen some of the revenues fall a little bit with the price of oil dropping. So they don't have quite as much money as they used to. And to some degree or another, some of the outreach programs they want to do with the FARC rebels is dependent on having money. What's going on there?
So what's going on in Colombia is that Colombia's facing the consequences of being highly dependent on petroleum exports for its revenue. Now, about 20% of the government's the federal government's take comes from exports of petroleum and from taxation of these exports and from royalties on the production of it. Now, the thing is, implementing some of the changes that the militants want, as a result of their demobilization, such as increased investment for rural areas, outreach programs, benefits for the demobilized militants, just general things like that. This would be hard at petroleum being at $100 a barrel. Now, with petroleum at half of that, or even less in some cases, this is definitely a big obstacle for Colombia. And it's going to have to contend with the fact that a lot of the areas where the militancy is centered in are places that are historically underdeveloped. There's not much of a private interest in investing in these areas, and the Colombian government is going to have a very limited leeway in order to make these investments in the time frame with the ongoing negotiation.
Well, and it's almost beside the point, too. I mean, there's only so much that they can do to actually discourage or disincentivize some of the well-entrenched criminal networks working there from laying down arms and laying down their trade and then coming into the government fold. But it'll be interesting to see how it plays out nonetheless. That's about all the time we have for today. Thanks very much for joining us. Our Compass comes out April 6th, so look for it in your inboxes then. Thanks a lot.